Hi guys, welcome back to another tutorial of how to draw a cartoon head using a photo reference. I am using Autodesk SketchBook, which is a free drawing app, so you won't have to worry about making any purchases. Okay, so once you have opened the app, go ahead and click this plus icon right here, and then go ahead and select new sketch. Create your canvas and then click this icon right here, and that will import whatever reference image that you would like to use. Alright, so now that you have your photo, you just adjust it to how you want it. Alright. Select this layer below the photo layer and just delete it. Once you tap it, you'll see the delete icon. And the next step is to turn down the opacity of the photo layer and press this plus icon to add a new layer above the photo layer. We're going to now select the marker that we're going to use. It can be found in the designer brush set. It's called the medium tip marker, and here it is. So once we've touched that, we're going to go up here and select the predictive stroke, setting it to level 3. Remember to change the color to black. That's the color that we'll be using to outline the drawing. So once you select back, go back into the medium tip marker to choose a suitable size. So anyone works, but I will be doing 1.1. Try to make it as fine as possible so that when I'm doing the outline for the eyebrows, it will look nice. Okay, so let's ensure that we're in the correct layer, and let's begin by stroking the hairs that can be found in between the eyebrows, and then just outlining the rest, just like you see I'm doing here. And you're going to do that on the next side as well. Bum, bum, bum. And in that same layer, you're gonna go on the predictive stroke, ensure that it's at level 3, and outline just like this. So what the predictive stroke does, it makes sure that your lines are not like jagged or they're not crooked. So it basically is an assistant for you to draw a bit more straighter. So let's continue by doing this to the mouth and the teeth, the nose, and everywhere that you basically see outlines. So I've decided not to go all the way down with his hair, with his locks, because I wanted to make the drawing a bit smaller. So you have the option to do that as well. As you're seeing here, I am leaving out a big part of the hair. And you have the option to just fill in the eyes. That. Alright, so now we have the outline. So that's how you do the outline. So now that we have the outline done, we're going to go ahead and move on to step 2. So step 2, select the photo layer and then this icon right here to add an additional layer, and ensure that it's between the photo layer and the outline layer, right? So this will be called the hair base color. So let's turn on back the photo layer and turn up the opacity, because we're going to color pick. In order to color pick the hair color, we're going to hold down, just like you see I'm doing here, and find the most suitable color for the hair. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and use this color. So turn off back the photo layer and let's test it out. Okay, so it could be a little bit more browner, so you have the option to adjust that by going in the color wheel and just playing around with it until you get that nice brown color. Looks more natural, looks real. Okay, so let's begin by ensuring that we're in the same layer and just making an outline just like this. So once you have made a full outline, just click on this paint bucket right here and just tap on the inside to make a fill. And to make a full fill, just tap again. There we go, step number 2 is completed. We have finished the base color for the hair. So let's just erase this piece right here, it shouldn't be there. There we go. Let's just fill in certain parts that were left out, just to get the details in. We have to pay attention to the little details so that the drawing could be almost perfected. There we go, just making some adjustments, erasing the parts that have been out of line and also filling the parts that were left out. Okay, so we're almost done. So next step is to create a new layer by selecting this plus icon, and you could drag the layer wherever you want it just by holding down on it and pulling it wherever you want it. But this one will be below the hair base color layer, and this will be called the skin base color. So we're going to put it right below the hair base color. Right, so just like step 2, we're going to open our photo reference and turn up the opacity and then color pick the skin, choosing the most suitable color for it to be the skin base color. Now once we have that, we could go back to the photo reference and turn down back the opacity. Always ensure that you go back to the correct layer. So once we're back into the skin base color layer, let's do the same thing that we did with the hair base color. We're gonna make an outline, and then after we have done the outline, we're going to select the paint bucket and we're going to fill in. Or you could choose to just color the whole skin if you want. Nice. So that's the skin base color. And let's just do the same thing for the teeth. So we're gonna go ahead and create a new layer below the skin base color, and the teeth is white, so we could use white, or we could use something less than white so that it doesn't look too white. It's based on your preference. And then you could either turn back on the reference or you turn off this so that you could see the color while you're coloring it, right? Because if you have a white background, then you won't see it. For example, see, I can't see it, but just know that it's being done. All right, and we'll just do the same thing for the eyes in that same layer, right? All right. Let's now create a new layer, and let's place it below the teeth layer. This layer will be called lips base color. So let's go. We're gonna color pick as usual, and then outline, and then fill. I think you guys are getting the hang of it now. Okay, so now that we have that, we're just gonna do the same thing for inside of his mouth and for his gums. Same thing, create a layer below the lips, color pick, and do that. And then you do the same thing for his gums as well. Congratulations, if you have made it this far, you have successfully made a cartoon head. Well, it's not quite done yet, but you've done a pretty decent job, so why not congratulate yourself? Anyways, we're gonna add some details now, like the shadows and the highlights of all of these layers. So we're gonna add highlights for the hair, the skin, the lips, and also shadows, and that will make it pop. So let's do the skin first. So start by color picking the skin. After you've color picked the skin, go into the color wheel and you're gonna ensure that you're on HSL. Then you're gonna go to L and then adjust it so that the color gets darker. So you're just gonna decrease so that it gets darker. And if you also adjust the one that says S, it will give the color a bit of brightness to it. So once you've done that, we're gonna go to the brushes and select the airbrush taper, which can be found in the designer brush set. Go ahead and turn down the opacity so that we could have more range and increase the size. And now what we're gonna do is to add a layer above the skin base color. So make sure it's above the skin, right? Now we're gonna go ahead and turn on the reference photo and turn off the skin base color layer, and we basically would like to see where the shadows are on the reference photo, you know, like those areas. So let's go ahead and increase the opacity of the photo, so now we could see them a bit more clearer. So areas like around here, there, right, and his neck, although we won't be doing his neck, you know, these are the parts that the shadows will be added. So let's ensure that we are going back into our shadow layer right above the skin base color and begin by, you know, lightly brushing the areas that have shadows. So we start off with some light brushes just so that it won't look dark, you know, right around these areas here. Right, so let's get around these areas right here, and don't forget between his eyes, as these shadows are a bit prominent right here. Don't forget there, right here, and around here. So when you're shading, you always want to make sure that it gets lighter. So it starts off dark and then gets lighter like this. Okay, so this area is a bit lighter. You can't really see it because I'm doing it lightly, you know, just going over it with light brushes until it gets darker and darker. Okay, great. So let's open the layer now and let's see how it looks. So this is how it looks so far. You could also make a few adjustments, just adding a bit more shadow to parts that you feel got left out, like right here, right here, right here, and these areas right there, okay? Okay, this step has two parts to it. So we're going to add another layer above the shadow layer, and we're gonna make our color just a bit darker. So we want the shadows to look a bit darker than the first one. Okay, so now adjust your brush and we're just going to add the darker shadows to areas that seems darker, like right here, especially the outer parts of the shadows. This way it will let the drawing or the shadow have a better shade to it, so it will be blended perfectly. So just the outer parts of the first set of shadows. So here's a better idea of what I'm doing. So I'm just using the same airbrush but at a smaller size and just getting those details of the darker spots, alright, just like you see I'm doing right here. And as you could see, it gives the drawing a more defined look. Okay, the next step now is to add the highlights. So we're gonna make a layer above the face, above the skin base color layer, and below the shadow layer, right? And in order to get the highlights color, we have to stir this off up a little bit. We have to color pick the skin base color, right? And then increase the L. Increase it so that it gets lighter, right? And you could turn that back on to ensure that you're in this layer. And as always, turn off the skin base color layer and then look on the reference layer. And let's use the airbrush tapered, and we're just going to get all the areas that are highlighted, like right here, right here, right here, you know, up these areas. Yeah, right here. And as usual, we could turn on this to see how it looks. Probably want here to be a bit brighter, you know. You see? Get a bit small for the parts that look small. So like right here, you know. So let's take a quick look at what we did. As you could see, placing the highlights in the areas where it is needed. Okay, so let's move on to the next step, which is to add the shadows and the highlights to the lips. But before we continue, let's see if you know what to do. And if you said this, then you got it right. So you're gonna go on this, ensure that you're in the skin base color, the lip base color, select, you're gonna go that, and you're gonna go on this, and you're gonna go on color pick, then you're gonna get it darker, then you're gonna turn this off, you're gonna turn this off, this on, and then you're gonna and we're gonna do the same thing for the highlights. onto the shadows of the hair and the highlights of the hair. So as per usual, what are we gonna do? If you said this, you got it right. We're gonna go into the hair base color, right? And then we're gonna select the selection tool so that we don't go out of line. And then we're gonna make sure that we have the magic wand, turn up the tolerance, right? And click the hair color, right? So after we've done that, we're gonna go over here and add a new layer above the hair color layer. And then we're gonna go into this airbrush tool. It's called the airbrush tapered and it can be found in the designer set. Alright, so we're gonna make it a little bit big because the locks are big. Alright, so we're gonna turn this off so that we could see the areas that are dark. And we're just gonna go ahead and do that. Oh, I forgot. And then we're gonna that dark, maybe even black, you know. You know. Okay, so the final step is to add the highlights to the hair. So we're gonna select the selection tool right there, select the hair, add a layer above the hair, color pick and make it a bit lighter. So this will be for the highlights. So ensure that we're in the correct layer, one that's between the hair base color layer and the shadow layer. And let's turn on our photo reference, adjust our brush, and let's just get the outer areas that has the highlights.
People change, but not us. And we just chillin', kicking it, kissed by the sun. Could be soaked to the skin in the mall soon. I know she got